Welcome to the Perfect Pairing Podcast. The cigar of the week this week is the Gurkha Marquesa Prensado.
But before we get to that, in case you guys don't know us already, my name is Chris, and I am the whiskey expert and the cigar noob.
And I'm Adam, and I'm the cigar expert, but the whiskey noob.
And as Adam mentioned, today we are looking for the perfect pairing out of 3 different pairings for this Gurkha Marquesa Prensado. Yes, it is already lit because we've been having audio issues. But my question that I had for you, Adam, and we didn't plan it, and nobody's going to believe us because this is take 3, was what does Prensado mean?
And my answer to that was, Chris, shut up, because that is the trivia question this week, and that was unplanned for sure. But
Yeah.
yes, everybody out there, that's the trivia question this week is, what does Prensado mean? And yes, it does have to relate to cigars. So I'm just going to
Okay.
leave it at that. Um, but what I can say is, I like this cigar.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? I can just jump right into my noob review because I've
Yeah.
already smoked it for a few minutes. I also really like this cigar. When I first lit it up, I thought it was really, really spicy. And I will say it definitely has it's like a fuller bodied cigar. There's some spice. There's a little bit of chocolate, a little bit of leather. Now, as I've gotten a little farther into it, I mean, I'm probably a half an inch into it. It's not quite as spicy. The spice definitely calmed down a little bit. Maybe my palate just needed to adjust or something. But there's still like a cracked pepper flavor there, along with almost like it's almost like salt and pepper flavor, actually, with some of the chocolate and a little bit of leather. And so far, that's about all I've got.
Yeah, I get when I have this cigar, I think the leather is really what is more predominant for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the I can see the cracked pepper, um, but the only reason that I won't call this a spice bomb, and I will actually probably fight you on that a little bit, is
Ooh.
because on the retro, it doesn't. I mean, there's no. It's spice flavored, but you're
Mm-hmm.
not getting spice burn like a real like spicy corojo or an Indonesian wrapper that's like a spice like that, like you feel the tingles in your nose. And in this one, for me, it's really smooth on the retro hail. So
I will say, right on light up, I was getting that, but then I wasn't anymore. And I also wonder, if I'm not mistaken, I haven't smoked a cigar for 2 weeks because we took a week off. So I'm wondering if it was also just getting readjusted to a cigar, which could very well be the case. And I also let it freaking go out thanks to our technical difficulties, so I got to relight.
it was funny. You were holding that cigar. For those of you guys in the audio, I'm sorry, but you were holding your lighter like this, like a, and I thought it was the cigar because your hand was just covering everything. And I'm like, Chris, if you hold a cigar like that ever again,
I'm just lightsaber gripping the cigar,
yeah,
like
like
firmly
man,
grasp it.
this cigar, yeah, don't white knuckle your cigars out there, everybody.
Yeah.
That's a no no. But uh, no, on this cigar, I mean, so going back to the blend, so it is a Sumatra wrapper. So that is going to contribute to a little bit of spice. I think it always brings out a nice leather, a nice. I can't explain it. It's almost like your bourbony bourbon phrase. This is a like it's a medium fully cigar.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, like this is what I think of medium full, and that's just tasting the body. And typically you separate body and flavor, but I feel like this is just what I get reminded of when I smoke the cigar, and you know, that's what you do when you toss out your stupid flavors. So that's what I'm doing now. Okay.
I mean, absolutely, right? Like there's a common flavor between the fuller bodied tobaccos, and this kind of exemplifies whatever that flavor is. Like it's not necessarily a specific note, but it has I totally agree with you. It has that flavor. Very enjoyable though, without like sometimes it's kind of the same way with alcohol burn versus harshness. Like you can have a lot of alcohol but not have a lot of alcohol harshness. This has like the very full bodied flavor to it. It's not like overly harsh. Like I said, it burned me on the retro hail, but I also haven't smoked in a couple weeks. So maybe if you're newer to cigars, it's going to burn on the retro hail, but it's not the kind of harsh, ashy char harshness that you get from some tobaccos. Like your very low end cigars will have that kind of like bitterness to them. It doesn't
Yeah,
have that. It's just
yeah,
the full bodied flavor.
yeah. No, I agree 100%. But before my big rock becomes
Yeah.
even smaller rock, I think we got to go ahead and get into pairing one because
Yes.
I'm excited for it too.
So pairing number one, we had Traverse City Whiskey's Old Fashioned, their pre-made Old Fashioned on. Now this week we've got Traverse City Whiskey Company's Cherry Old Fashioned. So this is another pre-made Old Fashioned that they make, but this one is made with their cherry syrup, if I'm not mistaken, or it's got cherries mixed into it. It says okay, and I think it might use. They have a cherry flavored whiskey. It might use that. Yes, okay, it does. Yep, it has their cherry flavored whiskey in it. Another thing to mention quickly, I'll give you a little second to taste it and see what's going on, is this episode and the next episode are kind of a part one and part two because we're going to use the same exact pairings. And if you're in the Perfect Pairing Club, you might have thought, I got two of the same cigars this month. But then you looked a little closer, and it's not two of the same cigars. So we've got the Gurkha Marquesa Prensado. We've got this box pressed one that we're smoking this week. And then we've got just the Gurkha Marquesa. I think this is a Toro, it looks like, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
Toro
Yeah,
round,
not
but
box
it's round.
pressed, round cigar, cylindrical, what you picture. So the idea is we're going to do these back to back in real time. It's going to release 2 weeks apart, but we're going to do these back to back and see the difference in the way that they pair with the pairings, because box pressed versus not box pressed, big cigar versus little cigar of the same tobaccos, those things do change the flavor, as you described in the one where we had to throw away the audio. So I'll let you take it over from here.
Yeah, I was about to say. Yeah, that was in take one. It was a great monologue. You guys should have heard me. It was phenomenal.
People are
Um,
like, man, Chris really knows his stuff. No, I'm just repeating what Adam said 30 minutes ago.
um, no, but I mean, you nailed it. It's exactly right. Like, you think of, okay, so I'm smoking the, uh, we'll give. I'm trying to think of one. Okay, so Aganorsa Leaf has a lunatic line, and they've got smaller cigars, and they've got really, 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 really big cigars.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, you can't have the same blend there. You can use the same tobaccos, but it's impossible to create the same flavor because there's only one wrapper leaf, and then there's a bunch of filler in the really, really big one, and there's still one wrapper leaf and less fillers in the smaller one. So it's gonna have that versatility, and that's what does the same thing. Even though these are both Toro sized, one of them's box pressed, one of them's not. When everyone out there can be in the know, when I was talking to everybody at Gurkha about this project specifically, I was like, they were like, oh well, we want to feature the Marquesa, and I'm like, okay, well, what do you want to do? And they're like, well, you want box press, want round, maybe we just throw you both. We have a lot of each, and I'm like, okay, wait a second, let's do both, because it brought back a memory of when I was very first starting out on TikTok in this whole Dreamer Cigars journey 3 years ago. I had an Asylum Medulla and an Asylum, which is funny, we've had that on the Perfect Pairing Club before,
Mm-hmm.
and the Asylum Medulla box pressed. And I had them both at the same exact time, and they tasted different, and it blew my mind. So if you guys want, go ahead, grab both, smoke them at the same time, so you can have that experience. We do have very affordable, cheap 3-packs on the website at shopdreamercigars.com for you, and you can still use your code PPP10 to get 10% off of that on top. So you can go grab a little bit more, so you can do some pairings and have them by itself. But I recommend it because it'll blow your mind that it's the same exact cigar, and you'll notice that little nuance. But I saw, going back to the pairing here, I
Mm-hmm.
saw a little kind of on your face there. You give me what you're thinking, because it's definitely an interesting one.
This is very interesting. So here's what I'll say, and I want to give my flowers to Traverse City Whiskey Company because their normal old fashioned I really enjoyed, even though it's actually a little bit clovey. I don't like clove, but I really liked it, especially with cigars. The cherry one for me was too sweet off the bat. I was like, this is. It was almost like I could taste the cherry, and it amplified the simple syrup to where I was just getting like a little bit of a stale sugar. That's just me personally. I think a lot of people really like it because it's a little bit sweeter. But once I put it with this cigar, suddenly that like stale sugar flavor went away. The cherry tasted like cherry. Like it tasted like like you're actually eating a cherry. And then the cigar, I think, deepened the flavor a little bit. You mentioned there's like a lot of a leather to it, and it almost brought back the leather for me a little bit and brought forward the more tobacco-y, almost maybe woody, but like slightly darker notes that made it almost like richer, I think is the word that I'd go for.
Yeah, I know no one out there has probably experienced it, so I've never talked about it, but I've never had your little weird experience with your Switzerland chocolate either. So I'm going to say this.
Okay.
If you've ever been to a tobacco farm or happen to go down to maybe Tampa and visit JC Newman's factory, that's probably the easiest way to experience this in the States. And you take some tobacco that is medium to full, maybe even like a broadleaf, even though this is a Sumatra wrapper, and you have just the tobacco leaves and you smell them. That's what I'm getting now. Is it is just that tobacco, like that is what this is. Just go figure. This is all tobacco and we're tasting tobacco, but
Yeah.
it is just it's a dark, rich tobacco flavor, and I'm really enjoying it. And I completely agree with you going back to the Traverse. We said it's Traverse, right? Traverse.
Travers.
Traverse. Dang it. Traverse.
You're close.
Traverse City. Here, cherry old fashioned. It was way too cherry-y, way too sweet for me in the beginning. That's why I really liked their last one because I didn't have a cherry in it, and it almost tasted like it already did, right? Just like
Right.
an old fashioned should. So I think this one's a little over the top. It's like they put like 5 cherries in my old fashioned, and I'm like, okay, this is a little much for me, but I do think it brings it, closer to what the original Traverse City old fashioned tasted like. This is
Yeah.
kind of where I'm at. I'm like, okay, you took away too much, the tobacco and kind of the body. I think of this cigar brought it back to like, no. We're having an old fashioned pairing today. None of this sweet crap.
Yes.
And it brought it back to the normal old fashioned that you would have. So that's what I'm experiencing when I go from the Gurkha Marquesa Prensado to the Traverse City Cherry Old Fashioned.
Yep. I totally agree. And I want to be clear for those listening too, because a lot of people love Traverse City's cherry whiskey that they make, cherry flavored whiskey. And so for those people that like that type of a thing, or maybe even just like fruit flavored whiskeys, you'll probably really like this. It's still like, I think it's objectively tasty. I think it's doing what it set out to do. We're just not the audience for that. Like I personally I make my old fashions with something high proof, really barrely, so the bourbon flavor really pops through. So I'm just not the audience for this old fashioned. But that being said, yeah, the full body of this cigar brings it back to tasting like an old fashioned. It tastes a little bit less artificial, a little bit more cherry. But the bourbon comes back and the whiskey flavor comes back, which I really enjoy. Love what it did to the cigar. I went back and forth while you were talking, and I'm like, dude, it's like rich is the perfect word. It's rich again. I mean, it's like a rich tobacco flavor. Big fan of that.
Yep, 100% could not agree more there. I mean, it's yeah, it's just not us. And I think this is one of the rare cases where your and I palates are exactly the same. Like
Yeah.
we both just are not this sweet, and it's just
Yep.
happened to be, we're bound to agree on something at some point.
Yeah. I mean, that's good. I think maybe we're starting to, maybe we'll start agreeing more. We'll see. We'll see what happens with pairing number 2 because I can't wait to get into it. So pairing number 2, we've got the Quintessential American Single Malt Whiskey. This is the Untitled Cigar Malt Project. It's from Cedar Ridge, and Adam has every right to make fun of me because this is the longest whiskey name in the entire world. It is once again the Quintessential American Single Malt Whiskey, and it's a special release. That special release is titled the Untitled Cigar Malt Project. Long name. But you know what? If they keep making whiskeys that taste like this, they can make it as long of a name as they want. Because of this, I was loving this when I tried this. I already posted my review of it on Instagram, And I loved it so much that I was like, hey, we need to pair this with a cigar. Can you get a bottle to Adam so that I can drink so that we can have this with a cigar? This is an American single malt, as mentioned. It's 114.9 proof, so it's a little bit higher proof. And it is finished in American style Madeira, first fill Amontillado sherry, French oak, new American oak, and peated malt. Wow.
Yeah, his
And
brain
finished
broke
in
because
ruby
it's too
port.
long of a name.
Yeah, dude. Well, it's also so many finishes. I wanted to make sure I read it right. And then finished in ruby port. Okay. I misspoke. So it's aged in all those first casks and then finished in ruby port. Aged in ex-bourbon bear. Yeah. Well, I'm not going to read through all that again because it's so many different ones. There's a ton of different finishing going on in this whiskey.
Oh man, do not make
like
whiskey come out of my nose. That is gonna hurt.
115 proof whiskey. Well, I went to read it again, and I'm like, everybody's gonna fall asleep if I read through all this again. So there's a lot going on, is what you need to know, and
Yeah.
it lives up to the complexity hype because there's so much going on in the glass. Never had it with a cigar, so I'm not gonna say if it's gonna work or not, but I know for sure it's got a lot going on.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna let you go ahead and try that one. Here's what I'll say. I did receive the bottle, and I I gotta fault myself on this one. I had no idea that it was the Untitled Cigar Project. I had no idea that it had, like they were trying to influence it on the cigar end. But when you put it in the mix, I was super excited because I've had this with a couple different cigars already, and I am trying my hardest not to rip through this bottle. But I mean, like I'm
Dude.
already close to half, and I'm like, I'm all I can hear is Chris in the back of my head going, "Once it reaches half, you gotta drink the rest." And I'm
Yeah.
like, "But I don't want it to be gone."
Mm-hmm.
But it is it pairs great with a lot of different cigars, and I'll go ahead and just mention it for me. Holy cow,
Yeah.
that is working. We're talking about what we were looking for in what we were looking for in the Traverse City Traverse. No, Traverse. I said it right.
Travers.
God dang it! I'm gonna get it wrong the whole time.
Just do the opposite of whatever you're thinking it is.
Seriously, I keep thinking I'm doing that. Anyways, the Traverse, like Travis Kelsey, Traverse, the Traverse City Cherry Old Fashioned. What we were looking for in that, what we were kind of hoping for out of the cigar, and then that because of that cigar's medium to full flavor with that tobacco, is exactly what this is giving us. So the I'm gonna have to say this. I'm gonna say quintessential American single malt special release. That's what I'm gonna say.
There you go.
Because I'm like, I don't even
You
know
can
how
say
to
this
say the
the
whole thing.
Cedar Ridge cigar malt. That's the
That's
easiest
fair.
way to say it probably. Because then you
Okay.
got the brand and you got the name of it. I don't know. That's my
The
best
Cedar
guess.
Ridge quintessential special release cigar malt and the Gurkha Marquesa Prensado.
There we go.
Wow. Perfect pairing.
Mm-hmm.
Amen. Like just the elevations of the 115 proof are there, and it doesn't bother that cigar at all. The Marquesa Prensado is sitting there like, yeah, all right.
You just saw me ash on myself. That sucked. Yep.
Oh, guys, I'm so sorry. I was on a
I'm gonna make
good.
that whiskey come out of your nose before the day's over.
Chris just asked right on himself. It was
Yeah.
fantastic. If you're on the audio, guys, I'm so sorry today. This is our third. This is our third clip. We are just everything's off the rails, and that was going to be a great clip for Instagram too. But with the Marquesa Prensado, I mean, like the Marquesa Prensado is sitting here, like, yeah, come on, bring that 115 proof.
Mm-hmm.
I can deal with this all day, and I'm gonna make everything in me with the bold tobaccos in it. The Sumatra wrapper here is gonna be expressed like explosions of flavor. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think this one's gonna be above a 9, and it's just at this point what number 9. So I'm intrigued to see if number 3 where that's going to land. I mean, obviously it's probably going
Me
to be in the
too.
middle of these two because we were not super pleased with the first one. So, But
Right.
how is it going to play with this? Because I feel like now this Marquesa Prensado is going to play a
Mm-hmm.
lot with this next pairing.
Well, I've noticed too, a lot of times, excuse me, I've noticed that we will either say they're kind of gelling or they're kind of playing. Like they gel sometimes when they kind of morph into like one thing. This is the definition of playing. Like it's almost like they're fencing each other. Like you try the one and it's like here's a little attack and it's like, oh, that was something different. And then you try the Cedar Ridge cigar malt and you're like, wait, that's something totally different. These are the definition of playing with each other. So the Cedar Ridge cigar malt, I've noticed the one finish that pops the most for me is the sherry finish. Suddenly it comes through and you've got like this nice kind of light sugar that's not overly fruity. And I'm like, where is that ruby port at? You jump over to the Gurkha Prensado, there's the ruby port. It's got like a deep kind of grapey, like berry flavor. It's got this deep flavor that's kind of under a very rich tobacco. Like that rich tobacco still there. And you got this other flavor. It took me a long time to nail down, but I think it's a grape or a berry flavor.
You've never had a bourbon infused cigar before, correct?
If I have, I don't remember it.
So most of those is it's not bourbon infused. So really what it is the cigars are aged in bourbon barrels.
Okay.
And so the heat and everything plays a little bit and it doesn't change dramatically, but it does give it just a little something a little different, and it's great marketing, kind of like the cigar malt. It's like
Mm-hmm.
they didn't put cigars in it, but they tried. And that's basically what a bourbon infused cigar is they didn't stick a needle in the cigar and infuse it with bourbon. That would not be able to be called a cigar anymore, because they have to be 100% tobacco. But yeah, it's definitely giving off that sort of vibe. And I was trying to picture, like when you were saying like, yeah, grape and then the dark tobacco that we've been talking about that we're loving, just that full, like really earthy dark tobacco flavor, that I think the Sumatra is just presenting full force. And I think that Habano binder is really coming into play there too. I think those two, it's Nicaraguan fillers, so we don't have an exact, blend of what that is. But I think those two are really playing, and that's what it reminded me of. Is like I was like, oh, I wonder if you could if you smashed grapes and you aged it in like, and then you like rubbed it on the tobacco maybe, and then I was like, no, it's probably more like if you put a bunch of tobacco leaves in a bourbon barrel, or maybe sorry, in a port barrel,
Mm-hmm.
like,
Mm-hmm.
and then you smelled that barrel. That's what this cigar is giving off.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great description of it. It's really hard to describe because it's two things that don't normally go together a lot, or I should say, you don't get them together a lot. They go together really nicely, in my opinion. I think it's making the cigar taste phenomenal. Like for me, this is so far my favorite way to smoke this cigar as of what we've done so far. It makes the cigar taste the best, in my opinion, even better than the cigar by itself. I think the cigar is being very elevated and all of the best notes of it are really coming out. And then you've got that fruitiness that is really nice. That ruby port's coming through nicely. I'm a sucker for a ruby port finish though. And maybe even that French oak, maybe that's giving it the little bit of extra of like dark oakiness too. Cuz
That's what
I
I
almost said it reminds me of a wine that is like really aged in a barrel, like really really oaky wine. That's kind of maybe that's that French oak coming through.
I think so. It's what I failed to mention it, but it's what I was thinking right when you were giving your initial. I was having the pairing while you were naming off the 10 things that it's finished in,
Yeah.
and I was like, you said French oak. Well, you said the port, and I was like, oh yeah, got that.
Mhm.
Like it's right there. And then you said French oak, and I'm like, yeah, it's subtle, but it's in there, and it's contributing to that again that dark-ish, medium-bodied tobacco flavor that we've been talking about. So I'm
Yeah.
I'm excited to dive into number three though, because I really want to know where this is gonna land.
One clarification I want to make before we move on is I feel like both of these, I feel like the Gurkha Prensado and the Cedar Ridge Cigar Malt are great examples of complexity done correctly. And when they come together, it's like amplified complexity done correctly. What I mean by that is complexity done incorrectly is something that seems complex, but you can't pull anything out of it because you're getting everything all at once. You're getting leather and you're getting tobacco and you're getting ruby port and you're getting in there. It's like a big jumbled up mess. The way I describe it is it's like an orchestra where every section of the orchestra is off by one beat. And so you can't actually hear anything, but you just hear that they're all playing. This is a great example of complexity done the right way. That orchestra is right in line with each other. You get this, and you're like, oh, wait, no, I kind of have that. Oh, wait, I'm getting this now. It all just kind of flows as you're tasting it. And I want to really acknowledge that because it's rare, and it's one of the things that makes whiskeys very expensive. The most expensive whiskeys you'll notice usually have that complexity done correctly. And when you put these two together, it's just amplifying that times 10.
Very, very, very well said. That's all I gotta say. You nailed that one. Cause yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking, but I didn't think it.
Fair enough.
It was like it was there in my head. It was yeah, but I couldn't have put it into words. So very well done.
Hey, fair enough. Let's jump into pairing number 3. I'm very excited to see what happens here. So pairing number 3, we've got Copper and Cask. We've had on before their cigar blend. This is their Barrel Master Selection. It's a straight bourbon whiskey finished in an Armagnac barrel. And it is 62% alcohol by volume. Whoa, that's what? 124? This is 124 proof. Wow.
Yeah. I think I think I think I might have just breathed a little fire.
Yeah.
Tasting it for the first time. I'm not a you've been training me to appreciate the teens. But once it gets into the 120s, I'm like, all right,
It can be tough. It can be tough.
that's a little much, but I'm intrigued. I haven't gone back to the cigar. I said that pretty much right as you stopped. I was like, yep. I just took a sip and I gotta let my palate sit for a second. And I'm intrigued to see if this cigar can play up to it. You know, we've been talking dark tobacco. We've been talking that it's got this medium, like, you know, the Traverse. I remembered. Traverse City Cherry Old Fashioned. It brought the Marquesa Prensado down to a medium-bodied-ish cigar for me. So, but then obviously last time it played with a 115 or 114, whatever, right in the middle there. So I was like, oh, okay, this is what I expected. Now it's being put to the test. So great job with the pairing selections today, because I think
Hey, thank you.
very, very diverse here. Yeah, I can't filibust anymore, so I'm so sorry, because now I really want to just take another very small sip. I'm going to coat my palate with it, not too much, and then I'm going to go to the cigar.
You go ahead and do that. I will try to speak in code as much as I can because I don't want to bias you, but I have something very specific, which I'll reveal, later. So here's what I'll say. When we were pairing with the Cedar Ridge cigar malt, you're tasting something, right?
It worked. Yes.
Yeah. If you're not watching the video version, Adam just reacted big. Yes. And there's something very specific that I'm tasting. And I'm not going to say what it is yet, but I will say, when we had the Cedar Ridge cigar malt with the Gurkha Prensado, it was there just a tiny, tiny little bit, like small enough that I was like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that was just in my head. And then we jumped over to the Copper and Cask Armagnac finish. And now going back to the Gurkha Prensado, I'm like, nope, that is there. That is a flavor that I think is just an itty bitty little whisper in this cigar. And when you go back to the Copper and Cask, suddenly you taste it. It's got a very interesting flavor. To kind of give a couple of ideas, this isn't the specific flavor note, but I've noticed the Copper and Cask, that oakiness is coming through with like a nice sweetness. Like sometimes oak gives you a sugary flavor, and this has that a little bit. It's a little bit sugary, a little bit vanilla creamy. And it also makes the cigar taste totally different than it tasted with the cigar malt. Are you getting the same thing there?
I would agree. I would agree with that. What I was pumping my fists about was really that it is not getting overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
this is probably one of the only cigars that we've had in the Perfect Pairing Club to date that would not get overwhelmed with this whiskey.
Yeah.
Because it is, I mean, my like lips are tingling. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
it's plain like, and I'm not taking big. I'm just coating my palate with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it is like that 124. It's a 124. Like, and it
Yeah.
is not playing a little less. It is like, yep, I am 124. But the Marquesa Prensado here is sitting there like, yeah, yeah, I know you are, and I can't guess the flavor you're getting though. That's I was trying to guess. All I'm gonna say. Here's my guess.
Okay.
Oh, I can't guess. Here's my guess. Barrel.
Kind of. Kind of.
It's the best guess I got.
So I will say that's not the flavor note, but I am getting more barrel, especially when you go back to the cigar. The barrel sticks around and stays with you through the cigar as well. You're getting like an oakiness for sure. Weirdly specific. Every single sip I just took, I was like, make sure you're not crazy before you say this because this is so weird. When I go back to the whiskey specifically, coconut. There is a touch of coconut. It's the weirdest thing. This whiskey doesn't taste like coconut. The cigar by itself doesn't taste like coconut. I got a tiny, tiny touch of it with the quintessential cigar malt. The copper and cask, I get it full force. As soon as I take a sip of it, it's like coconut. It's crazy.
Man, I'm searching in the depths of my soul for this flavor note, and all that's coming out is pineapple.
Ooh, oh, well, we're still tropical. Pina colada, maybe.
We'll meet in the middle. Pina
Yeah,
colada.
yeah. Let me
um,
think of pineapple now.
that's all I'm getting out of the whiskey. I just don't think that coconut is there. Maybe I could give you a uh what is that Girl Scout cookie called that has coconut and
Samoa.
caramel? Samoa.
I was thinking about that as well. Yes.
Because of the dark tobacco gives a little chocolate in there, and then I would
Mm-hmm.
say more caramel involved in here than coconut, which is a Samoa. I'll give you a Samoa. But here's
I'm
what I want to
tasting
say.
coconut. I'll be honest, but you
For
go ahead.
those for those of you out there that are on my end here,
Yeah.
that coconut, or even me saying pineapple, or me even saying Samoa, do not expect to drink this whiskey and be like, "Wow, that's a Samoa." Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
if you go to take a sip thinking it's a Samoa, you're gonna take too big of a sip, and then your throat's gonna be burned.
Yeah.
That's and
Yeah.
if you're
Yeah.
not used to 124s, if you're coming from the cigar side, and that's what I wanted to say here.
Mm-hmm.
This is a very specific note I wanted to make sure I mentioned. The Gurkha Marquesa Prensado. You take a puff of that, then you go to this copper and cask straight bourbon whiskey finished in Armagnac barrels, and you try that. You are going to be able to experience a 124 proof whiskey very naturally. I do not
Mm.
like 120 plus. Well, I don't want to say that. I barely drink 120 plus. It's
Mm-hmm.
overwhelming for my palate usually. I'm not used to it. I haven't trained my palate in it. I don't have it that often, and that's just what it is. So, if you're someone like me that if you're someone like me that doesn't typically drink something that's 120 proof plus and even a 124 here, grab this Gurkha Marquesa Prensado, grab a little copper and cask, finished in that Armagnac barrel. It is, you said it's a master select finish, right? Or just the master?
Yes. Barrel Master Selection. It says.
Okay. The barrel master selection. Grab the barrel master selection, and you're going to be able to at least start to learn. We've talked about a lot of different ways to get into pairings, to a lot of pairings that are good beginner pairings. We've talked about a lot of ways to, on your side, this is a great whiskey to help you get into cigars. This is a great, like level 3. You love cigars, you like whiskey, but just like me, but you haven't been able to travel into that 120 plus range yet, this is your introductory pairing to the high proof whiskey.
Hmm.
That's what I, was just trying to get out. I, for whatever reason, could not remember the name of that copper and cast Master Select barrel
Yes.
finished in Armagnac.
This is another
Yeah,
one that it could have a really long name depending on what you call it. Yeah.
yeah.
But I no, I totally agree with you. It does tame that down a little bit. And I can't get past like the coconut flavor, but I can see where what you're saying where maybe I'll try to level with you. Does it at least taste a little bit more vanilla creamy than it did before? Cuz for me without the cigar, it's very very punchy. Like you don't have some of that vanilla cream type flavor.
No, absolutely. Like right when you were saying that, and I like it creates that sweetness clearly because the salivation is instant. Like
Mhm.
it just starts pouring, and that is the sweetness coming out on the side of your tongue there. It's really a welcoming, a welcoming pairing, and that's what I'm saying. I'm not even saying that it's downplaying the proof. I'm
Mhm.
saying that it's just making it something that you can understand rather than
Right.
this burns.
Right, right. No, I'm totally with you. Now, what we haven't really talked about is what's happening to the cigar. So I'm going to take a guess, and then you can correct me because you're the cigar guy. But I feel like the Gurkha Marquesa is getting a little bit lighter. Like I'm getting a little bit of graham cracker almost. Still getting those tobacco notes and some of that spice. But I think the leather is back to the forefront, which it wasn't as much with the cigar malt. And then almost a touch of something else light, like a graham cracker.
I will give you I'll give you the graham cracker. I don't know if I would use the term light again, just because of the proof that's probably coming across
Right.
for me, but it is definitely leathery in a great way. Great way. I think the graham cracker is there, and I think what was I gonna say? Well, the spice notes is weird.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Ah, crap! I'm doing it, Chris.
Yeah, here
Um,
you go. Come on.
it is a pepper flavor without the peppery spice.
I know. I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. Yes.
That's all I don't know how to say it anywhere else because that's as far as my Chris vocabulary goes. But it tastes like pepper without like the peppery burn. And it's a
Mm-hmm.
weird thing, and I think it's that contributing factor of the dark sweetness that's in the tobacco that is clearly some hidden in there somewhere here. Um, I don't know if I'd classify Sumatra as sweet, but I mean, this being medium full, maybe it's the Habano that's coming out a little bit. Um, just so you know, Chris, Habano and Corojo
Mm-hmm.
are like cousins.
Ah,
So
okay.
they're
Okay.
not that far apart. So that's where I think like some of that's coming in. But we have been slightly long-winded. I just saw the time, so let's go ahead and get into our rankings if you're ready.
I just wrote them down. I'm ready to go. So I'll go first. I'll give you a sec to think while I explain what I've got. So starting with rankings, I have probably what people would guess. So I've got the Traverse City pre-made cherry old fashioned in third, and then I've got the Copper and Cask Armagnac finish in second, and then I've got the Cedar Ridge Quintessential Untitled Cigar Malt Project in first place. And it's not in first place just because of that super long name, although maybe that gives it some bonus points.
I think it gives it negative points, and
Yeah.
it's still in first for me. And I do have the same exact lineup as you have. I've got that Copper and Cask Armagnac finish in second, and the Traverse. That was close. Traverse City Cherry Old Fashioned there in third.
Yeah. Now I will say, have you gone back to the Traverse Old Fashioned
Not yet.
yet?
I'm about
Okay.
to.
It's better than I thought it was going to be. It definitely, maybe it's because we've been drinking fire for the past 15 minutes.
That's all. I was just about to mention that, but I'm not gonna say it.
Yeah, but it is, um, but you would think that'd make the sweetness worse. And I don't think it does, actually. It's very welcoming. Um, it's definitely doing enough to the cigar where you'll see in my ratings, I put it as I would drink this. It was definitely not like a bad pairing.
I agree.
And I think especially it's kind of the flip of that Copper and Cask where it almost makes the Gurkha Marquesa a little bit more approachable. It because the whiskey's so approachable, you're not having to battle anything on that front. So you can just kind of focus on the Gurkha Marquesa, which gets a little bit richer and doesn't have quite as much of a spice to it, in my opinion.
I'd agree with that. I'd agree with that definitely. So diving straight in,
Yep.
let's start three. We're gonna start off with this Traverse City Cherry Old Fashioned. I had a 6.5.
Okay, I'm not too far off. I had it at a 7.2. I thought this is a good pairing. I'd be happy to pick it up. It's not amazing, but it's also not bad.
Yeah, I mean, like, and it's just not our palate. So if you guys love 5 cherries in your old fashioned, I mean, also grab this. I think it was more the pairing. I do want to. Chris has said it before. The Traverse City um, cherry old fashioned here is good. It's just not our
Mm-hmm.
palate. But moving on to the Copper and Cast Armagnac finish, I've got that one at a 8.2 solid.
Oh, I have it at an 8.1. We are neck and neck on that one.
That leaves me very intrigued for the final finale here. We've got the quintessential 10 finishes American single malt special release, the Untitled Cigar Malt Project. I've got it sitting right at 9.4.
9.4. Same exact rating, dude.
Yep. That one just it works, and I'm so happy we found a heavy pairing going into the winter and coming up here soon. I'm
Yes.
excited that we found something. I feel like the other ones that we found are good fall pairings, so we're tuning in right here for the winter. It's perfect timing. This one it just blew us out of the water. I mean, we talked about it enough during the pairing. I don't even know if I can talk it up anymore.
Totally agreed. I don't want to beat the dead horse too much for those listening, but yes, it was that good. It lived up to the hype. Fantastic pairing. It made the cigar taste phenomenal, in my opinion. Cannot wait to see how the ratings and maybe the rankings change with just the Marquesa, not the box pressed.
I agree. So I'm gonna ask you, Chris. I'm gonna put you right on
Uh
the
huh.
spot. Trivia question of the week. What does Prensado mean? What do you think?
My guess is it's Spanish for pressed.
Bingo.
All right. All
Nailed it.
right. I was guessing because it's box pressed, and I don't know the word pressed in Spanish, to be clear. I do speak some Spanish, but I just know that auto is usually like the ed. It's like it's pressed. It's so that was my guess.
Well, it's funny because from what I've seen, it means pressing.
What? No, that'd be prensando? I
I don't
don't
know.
know.
But anyways, yes, it is pressed, and that's why they named it this. It is the box press version of the Gurkha Marquesa. So guys, please tune in next week. This is where I'm gonna start getting really excited to try these same pairings with the same cigar, but as a round version, not this Prensado, not the box press version. And I'm hoping that we see some little complexity. Chris, I'm gonna say this real quick. We may have to toss in a fourth pairing just because these were so diverse. We
Yeah.
may have to toss in a fourth pairing because these all three of these are very polarizing to where we may have to find a middle ground a little bit.
Fair
But
enough.
guys, thank you for tuning in. Uh, See you next week on this crazy journey that we're gonna find out smoking the same cigar. I'm just super excited about it. Chris, man, cheers.
Me too. Cheers.